Oh, hi there. I'm Lee Nix, and this is A Memory of Malice. Welcome to my first ever minisode. You could technically call episode 1 a minisode 2, I guess. But I digress. This episode was a bit unplanned, but a local story has popped up and I wanted to get the word out. A body was found in the valley, and the Phoenix police have been awfully quick to label the death as accidental, even though they haven't done their due diligence. I decided to cover this case to try and get the word out. A quick warning that this case is a suspected drowning, though I don't describe it or linger on it. But feel free to skip this one if that's going to be too much, okay? And with that, on to the case. Ask anyone who knew Jose Jimenez, and they'll tell you what a joy he was to be around. One friend and co-worker described how he felt around Jose as this profound sense of comfort. He went on to say that, "I have a smile on my face thinking about it. That same type of smile I always had, being around him. It's a Jose smile." He was hardly alone in this sentiment. Jose was a fixture in the chef community, but he was also a very giving man. He and his wife volunteered freely of their time to better their community. They even earned the Presidential Gold Volunteer Services Award earlier this year for volunteering over 2,000 hours. He was well loved and for good reason. So it mystifies me why it seems like the police have washed their hands of his case. And it's not that there are no leads to follow up on. They just completely refuse to look into them. But before we get into the details of Jose's suspicious death, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about who he was as a person. Jose Jimenez was born in Chicago in 1975, and he would always love his hometown. He especially loved the Chicago Blackhawks, which Google tells me is a hockey team. I'll have to take their word for it. He lived in Chicago until he was 10, when his mother sadly passed away from cancer. After that, he moved from Illinois to Arizona to live with his brother. One article I read also mentioned his godmother, so I assume he had her in the picture as well. He grew up and entered high school, but he must have decided that it wasn't for him, because he dropped out and got his GED. Me too, we're GED bros. I don't know why I included that fact, but I felt a kinship over it, so in it goes. He had his first child when he was 17, and his second when he was 19. By all accounts, he was a great dad. He worked 2 jobs for a long time to support his children. One of his jobs was at UPS, and the other was at a local restaurant called Garcia's. His work at the restaurant must have inspired him, because Jose was a great chef who worked at many places in the valley. Over the years, he worked at places like Welcome Diner, Little Miss BBQ, and Cloth and Flame. Another friend of Jose's, named Wayne Coates, described a time when they were informed that they had to cook for VIPs. Jose quipped, "I don't care if it's Obama, I don't care if it's your mama, I don't care if it's the Dalai Lama. Every plate goes out the same." In the same quote, Coates elaborated, "Jose gave his best to every single person, no matter who they were." In 2006, Jose married Amanda Nash Jimenez, and both of them would do a lot of good for the community. Together, they hosted 8 foreign exchange students in their home. Jose joined the Great Cycle Challenge USA to raise money to fight pediatric cancer. He and his wife would even help provide Thanksgiving to kids in group homes for the 3 years prior to his death. I never had the privilege of meeting Jose, but he seemed like a really great guy. He was the kind of person whose presence made the community a brighter and warmer place. So it makes what happened an even greater tragedy. On the night of November 5th, Jose was his normal self. He finished work without problems and texted his wife that he was heading home around 10:20 p.m. Then, he collected his bike and rode off. He was caught by CCTV pedaling through the darkness toward home. Only, he never made it there. Jose wasn't missing long. On November 6th, Phoenix police received a call telling them that an injured man was in a canal at Dunlap and 7th Avenues. When they arrived, they discovered the dead body of Jose Macario Jimenez. The police informed Amanda Nash Jimenez that her husband was dead and handed her his sopping wet backpack that they'd fished from the canal. About an hour later, they showed up to tell her that they'd forgotten to swab the bag for DNA, and they took it back. This seems very, very odd to me. They well and truly broke the chain of evidence. For those who may not be familiar with the term, the chain of evidence, or chain of custody, is a legal term that basically describes the people who have collected, examined, photographed, etc., a piece of evidence. For most pieces of evidence, this is carefully collected and cataloged alongside the evidence, so that if they need to use it in court, they can prove it is what they say it is and that it hasn't been tampered with in some way. So, handing someone evidence and leaving, then coming back to say that you need to collect evidence from that item is a little absurd. Anything could have happened to that item while you were gone, and it might not matter for some pieces of evidence. But if you intend to swab for DNA, that seems like a serious lapse in judgment. The Phoenix PD would quickly say there didn't appear to be anything suspicious about Jose's death. Their stance was firmed when the preliminary medical examiner's report was released, and listed the unofficial cause of death as an accidental drowning, listing alcohol intoxication as a contributing factor. The police have stated that they perform a death investigation only if one of 4 conditions is met: that the death was the result of violence, that it occurred in a suspicious, unusual, or unnatural manner, that the death occurred as a result of any prior traumatic injury, or that the death was accompanied by substantial decomposition. They believe that Jose's death doesn't meet any of the conditions. From the beginning, Jose's wife and friends seemed to notice some very troubling things about his death. Why was he biking near the canal to begin with? According to Nash Jimenez, Jose didn't like the water and never biked near the canals. Where was his expensive bicycle and his phone? He had both of those things when he left work, but neither of them was found near the canal or on his body. Perhaps they had fallen into the canal, but the police never looked for them. His bike, at least, was possibly seen after his death. A friend of Jose's spoke to the news and told of how she and others had seen his bike in the area, and called the police 4 times about it. The police arrived much too late. By then, the bike had disappeared. We can assume his bike was stolen, but the question remains, when did it happen? Did Jose somehow fall off the bike and it was left on the banks of the canal? But why would Jose have ridden so close to the canals he feared? Also, no matter how I try to picture it, I have trouble imagining a scenario where Jose would end up in the canal and his bike would not. As to alcohol intoxication, friends and family attested that it wasn't unusual for Jose to have a beer or 2 after work. This leads me to believe that he could handle this amount of alcohol. So again, I'm left wondering why. Amanda Nash Jimenez noticed unexplained injuries on her husband's body after his death that the preliminary medical examiner's report fails to mention. There's no description of what kind of injuries these were or where they were on the body, but I'd be interested to know these details. If you wait for a police investigation to illuminate this case, you'll be waiting till the apocalypse. The police haven't done squat in this case. Instead, they're waiting for the medical examiner's final report. The report is due in February. As I write this, it's early December. If, and it's a big fucking if, the report gets the police to actually investigate, 4 months will have passed. That's a lot of time for evidence to waste away. Security cameras get overwritten, witnesses forget, and people move away. It's negligence to not even do the bare minimum of effort on this case and talk to people. The last person to talk to Jose at work that evening? hasn't even been interviewed by police. 6 friends of Jose's have gotten together to do their own investigation of that night. They've managed to talk to witnesses, get security camera footage, and discover at least part of Jose's path that night. And they discovered something worth pursuing at the very least. That night, Jose went to a bar on his route home and had a beer. While he was there, he held a conversation with a man that the bartender would later describe as either unstable or depressed, depending on the source you're referencing. This man was discussing his money problems with Jose. When the man left, Jose left a moment or so later. This could be a complete coincidence, but, as I said, it's worth pursuing it as a lead. If nothing else, a man with money problems was talking with Jose, whose expensive bike went missing. It would harm no one if the police tracked this guy down just to talk to him. I want to clearly state that I'm not implying that this man had anything to do with Jose's death. I'm only saying that anyone and everyone who had contact with him should be interviewed. In my opinion, there are multiple things the police should have done upon discovering Jose's body. They should have dredged the canal for his bike. If his bike is in the canal, it's far more likely that Jose did die accidentally. They should have tracked Jose's route through CCTV and interviewed those who saw him last that evening. They should have attempted to track his phone location and activity. And they should have immediately responded to the calls from his friends reporting his bike in the area. The police did none of these. Jose was a well-loved man with vocal friends and family. But what about other families that this happens to? Who do they turn to? Where do they get support? Unfortunately, there's not much that can be done besides putting pressure on the Phoenix Police Department to look into this. If they refuse to investigate, I'm afraid we might never know whether this was truly an accident. There is a limit to what ordinary citizens can glean without the help of search warrants and specialized technology. We might never know whether this was an accidental death or not. An interesting facet about this case is that, according to the source I read, the 911 caller didn't call in a dead body in the canal. That wouldn't be unusual for Arizona. Bodies being found in the canals aren't that uncommon. No, the caller called in an injured man. I wonder what about Jose's body made him use that phrasing. But I'll probably never find out. Jose's family deserves answers. They don't need to be in a limbo of wondering whether his death was an accident or not. If it was an accident, they need to find out so they can properly grieve his loss. And if it wasn't, they deserve the chance to get justice for their loved one. I mentioned that Jose once rode his bike to raise money to fight childhood cancer. I'm going to link the donation page for Phoenix Children's Hospital in the details. If you can donate anything in Jose's name, time, objects, money, that would be fantastic. But if you aren't able to, please share the link on social media. It takes a few seconds and could really help a sick child out. Let's take a page out of Jose's book and try to make the world a brighter place. And that's all the information I have. I'll link my sources in the details, but there's not all that much out right now. As always, thank you so much for watching. Comment, like, subscribe, follow, whatever the option is for the platform you're on at the moment. I'm not going to plug my stuff this time. If you feel like supporting me, thank you so much. But in this case, I'd much rather you make a donation in Jose's name to the Phoenix Children's Hospital. I hope your holiday season has been a happy one so far, and that it continues to be so. My next video isn't until the 23rd of December, so I'll wish a very early Happy Hanukkah and Happy Yule to anybody who celebrates them. And, as always, stay safe and stay hydrated.